I'm Caden.
And I'm Simala, his wife.
And we are Love and Lore, talking about dark fantasy, light fantasy, and everything in between.
So today we wanted to do a video for those people like me. I only used to read like YA fantasy, romantasy, and like lighter books. And Caden really wanted me to get into harder fantasy and more like complex stuff. And he did. And today we wanted to share with you how to do it. And if you're a person like me, which books you can start with. And today we'll be talking specifically about Brandon Sanderson books because I think that he is a great author that is kind of in the middle, that is not too hard, not too soft, and it's perfect.
And one of the reasons he is my favorite author is we do have, some heavier moments, but there's everything in between. Like I said, you do have some romantic plots that she loves, you have some light comedy, and you have more serious moments. So, without further ado, let's start with this list.
Yes, and I'll be reading his books in chronological order, and then Kane will be placing them on the scale from soft to hard. And the first one we'll start with will be Cosmere's Secret Projects, which actually were the ones that I read first. And the first one is Tress of the Emerald Sea.
These ones are, I'll preface this, great entry points because you don't need to know everything about all the other ones. We got her started on these, and then even my grandma was listening to Tress randomly one day. So, I think Tress is a good entry point. A lot of people compare this to The Princess Bride. It has some good, fun, traveling adventure with a little bit of romance, pretty low stakes, but there are great magic systems. I did enjoy this one. So we'll start off. Tress is going to be pretty low on the scale, and we'll see where she ends up.
Yeah, honestly, I would say it's almost too soft for me. It almost felt like middle grade book, and I'm more used to YA, so I would place it pretty low on the list. It's pretty soft.
Mm-hmm.
And the next book we have on this list is The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England.
Okay, I actually really enjoyed this one. I know a lot of people weren't a big fan of it, but you do have to note this isn't Cosmere. This is just a one-shot that he did. A lot of people compare it to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But I do think that it is more kind of tailored to an adult audience. Nothing really... All of Brandon Sanderson's books don't really have things that are more inappropriate for younger audiences. Just more complex. But I would definitely place that one above Tress.
What about Yumi and the Nightmare Painter? The first book I read from Brandon Sanderson's.
Okay, this one, we do actually get some kind of horror elements in it with Painter, and this one is going to go a step above Frugal, because I think that you do have some of those heavier moments, and you really get to see Brandon's world building and the magic systems and how complex they can get. One of the best things about this book is that he creates two worlds with two separate magic systems, both unlike anything you've ever seen, and I just really liked it, and it's an interesting romance. Without spoiling a lot that goes on, that is kind of what it is presented as. He wrote it for his wife, and I thought it's a really fun one. So this one, this is going to be a little bit of a harder entry point for people, but I think if you're a Romantasy fan, this might actually be your best choice to go to start.
Yeah, definitely. I think people who are transitioning from Romantasy, I think this is the best book for them. Then we have The Sunlit Man.
Okay, Sunlit Man is definitely going to go above Yumi. This one, there are darker elements, and it's a harder one to get into. You can read this on your own, but I think that this is one that it's better to have read the Stormlight Archive before getting into it.
Really? So it's even heavier than Stormlight Archive?
Not heavier, but there are very distinct connections. So I think this one is harder because it does connect to a horror-ish world that he gets to in one of his short stories. There are ghosts in it, so we kind of get a little more of the horror moments with it. And I would say it's more violent than the other ones that we've talked about here. And so if you really want to enjoy it, I think you need to read Stormlight first. It's good on its own, but it's more of a difficult entry point for people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the next on the list is not a secret project anymore. It's Elantris.
Okay. Elantris, I'll place that... I think I'll do that one between Yumi and Sunlit. Because we kind of have the diseased civilization, it's kind of a darker theme, and this one is it's a heavier fantasy. This is a full-on fantasy novel, which, Tress can be taken as a fun adventure. Most readers can enjoy it. This is a real taste of what Brandon Sanderson's all about. We get more of a complex magic system, and it has that cool glossary and things like that. So this is your first kind of real taste if you're jumping into Sanderson, getting that. I think it's right below Sunlit Man because there are some dark things there, but it is a good point to enter in.
Oh, The Emperor's Soul, actually one of my favorites.
Okay, because you've recently read this one.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit since I have. Where would you put this one?
Honestly, even though romance is very important for me as a romantasy reader and a YA fan, but it didn't have romance in it, but I still really loved it, and I would honestly put it kind of next to Yumi, because on one hand it has less violence, but on the other hand it's less about romance. So I don't even know, where would you put it?
I think we'll put it right below Yumi, right above Frugal Wizard, because Frugal Wizard, I think, is another one, like I said, that can be enjoyed by really anyone. It's more of a comedy. You don't need to know anything about Brandon Sanderson or getting into it. This one, more so tailors to his style. We have an interesting magic system, cool art to it. And so Emperor's Soul is going to be right below Yumi.
Okay. Next we have Mistborn books and Era 1.
Okay, Mistborn Era 1, we are going to put this at the top of the list right now. I think that this one is honestly usually what I tell people to enter with. If they're a fantasy fan and they're looking for something to read, start with Mistborn. This isn't what I'd necessarily recommend to people that are just getting into the genre. Actually, I would. It depends on what they're going to. But this one does have, this is full-on Sanderson. We do have topics of slavery, and Vin is born into pretty difficult circumstances. We have big character deaths throughout the whole series, which isn't as experienced in a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the last book of the trilogy is pretty heavy. It was pretty heavy for me, so I wouldn't recommend it being the first one that you read after only Romantasy books. And, of course, Mistborn Era 2, where do you place that one?
I'll place that right below Mistborn. I think that, of course, I would prefer that you read the first series before, which I honestly think you probably could enjoy the next one. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there are some pretty big connections, but it's its own story. The reason that I do this one is Era 2 does have some darker moments, but it has a lot of swashbuckling, and it's kind of following a detective, Wax and Wayne, and Wayne is a good comic relief that can sometimes make it feel really lighthearted. And these books are shorter. The later ones tie into other stuff, so without Lost Metal, this is just a good kind of detective thriller series. Lost Metal, to me, felt like Spider-Man No Way Home. When we get in there and you have so many characters, not necessarily characters, but worlds you recognize coming into this story. So it was just a big converging point. And to have this right before the secret project was pretty cool to see the whole Cosmere unfurled. So in level of heaviness, I'm going to put this right below Mistborn, but right now this is at our number 2.
Okay, and actually Kaden mentioned Cosmere and the worlds merging together, so if you don't know much about Brandon Sanderson, he does have kind of a one universe where everything happens in, and Bookborn has a really good video kind of explaining how to understand and start understanding all of this, so we'll link that. Next we have The Reckoners. Okay,
The Reckoners is such an underhyped series. I love it so much, and it is technically YA, so I think that probably turns a lot of people off from it. Ranking, I think I'm going to put it right above Frugal Wizard, below...
Really? I thought it would be way above Mistborn. It's not?
No, it's not very dark, And this one, I think, there are dark points and there are great twists, but, let's go ahead. We'll put this right below Elantris, right above Yumi, because we do get some heavier moments. If you don't know anything about the Reckoners, think all superheroes are evil and their powers corrupt them. This is kind of like The Boys, but it doesn't go to those really unnecessary extremes. I honestly liked it a lot more than The Boys, and the series feels even more sci-fi rather than just straight up superhero as it goes on. Amazing twists, and I love this one so much. But I think it does get a bad rap, like I said, for being YA. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. There are 3 books in the series, and there is a novella to go along with it. So right now we're going to put this above Yumi, because it is longer, more of a commitment, but it's going to be right below Elantris, which is Sanderson's typical fantasy.
So does it have any romance in it?
Yes, there actually does. So I think that you would enjoy it. And I think it's a good taste if you're kind of wanting something fun, different, and let's say you like Marvel, but you are feeling that superhero fatigue, definitely check this out. It doesn't really push that, superheroes. And the great thing is, we don't have these repetitive storylines of everyone being invincible. They're pretty high stakes, and there's a lot of unique things like small individual magic systems, and some of the greatest Sanderson twists I've ever read. Really enjoy it. Highly recommend it.
Okay. And next we have Skyward.
Okay, Skyward I enjoyed. And this one definitely has that YA feel. And, there's no problem with that. For one example, Doomslug to me just kind of really hits that point of kind of tailoring to a lower audience, makes great merch, and just that kind of animal companion in the name itself. But there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your thing, go for it. It is really cool to see Sanderson doing some sci-fi, and this one kind of has a good trope of the enemies to lovers, the military school, and, any age can really enjoy this book. But I'm going to place it right above Tress, right below Frugal Wizard. I think this is a great thing if you have, teenagers, younger kids, young adults that are trying to read a lot. Like, if you got high school, middle school kids, definitely recommend this series to them. It is great, fun ride, and she's just recently read it. Did you like it?
Yeah, I agree with your placement. It's a pretty light YA, and it has some romance, but not too much, and yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and he plays with some common tropes, but it is not something repetitive that you see.
Yeah. And next we have, the Stormlight Archive.
Okay, Stormlight has to go at the top. I think a lot of people say that this series emotionally broke them. We have some really hard flashbacks. You look at Shallan's past, you look at Kaladin's past, and even Dalinar's, to see what he becomes and the mistakes he's made in the past. There's a lot of heavy stuff here, and a lot of characters that deal with a lot of emotional difficulty. But, I think that is one of the reasons I enjoy it so much, is because you get to see some darkness, and the light makes it so much better.
Yeah, I agree. I started Stormlight, and I couldn't even finish the first book because it got too heavy for me. So I definitely should read some of other Brandon Sanderson books we've mentioned today before I come back to that one.
And like I said, I think this one has something to offer for everyone, but one of the hardest things about it is a long series. Well, planned to be really long. There's going to be a 5th book this year, and these books are all over 1,000 pages. So this is one that you want to go into being familiar with fantasy. There's a lot to commit to reading this series because there's so much lore to it, which is one of the most appealing things. This is where you see Sanderson's magnum opus as his world building, magic systems, and there's just so much to explore there. But then again, you get such relatable characters. Like, she's an artist. I know she'll love Shallan when she really gets to meet her, and she might not recognize that until she reads Words of Radiance, which is the 2nd book. It goes back on her past, and so it is definitely the hardest entry point here. Then again, if you are someone that has gone and read Malazan, Wheel of Time, and you are a fantasy veteran, this is probably one most suited to you.
So we actually forgot to include Warbreaker, which is one of my personal favorites, and I really wanted to include it, and I want to put it right below Yumi and above Emperor's Soul, my 2 other favorites. And it's great for those who are transitioning from Romantasy. It has great romance in it, it's not too long, and I really love it. Okay, and here's our finished list of soft to hard. So definitely try some of the bottom ones if you're just getting into fantasy and read Sanderson. And let us know if you agree, if you've read them. Thank you for watching!